how has the Indian luxury car market performed so far, and how will it perform in the next few years?
So the luxury car market, if you actually go to see in the last, let's say, almost 15 years, has been a byproduct of a lot of cycles that have led it to a point of being static. And numerous reports were floated, let's say, in the year 2008, that how India will look in 2020. You had KPMGs, you had Arthur Anderson, you had ENYs, PwCs of the world wanting to say that, oh, India is going to have a breakout the way China did with GDPs. The day GDP exceeds 3,000 USD per capita is when you will see India as a market exploding. Frankly speaking, none of that happened, because what we saw is that the market virtually and perpetually landed up being on a treadmill of sorts, which means when I say running on a treadmill, what I mean to say is that you do run a distance of 7 kilometers, 10 kilometers, only to realize that your starting point and the end point was the same. So how has the luxury car market been for itself in the last year? If I were to take that as a point of contention or a point of reference, it's been at 33,000 units. How is it likely to, let's say, shape up for itself in the time that we are ending at or looking at now? I would say the outlook remains positive for us in the times to come. Business has definitely consolidated itself. We went through a lot of business cycles. 2016, 2017, you had the transition. You had the inclusion of GST. You then moved to the point where there was demonetization. You then moved to the point where 2019 was again a year where you were trying to gather yourself as to which direction to look at as far as the market is concerned, as far as the customers are concerned. And then 2020, everybody was welcomed with COVID, which continued until the year ahead. And that as a concern more or less has, let's say, ceased to exist for India as a market. Having said that, the last 2 years, if we take that as a base point of reference, definitely has allowed the market to resurrect itself from where it was to where it is. Right. And the way I sense and see it is that India, fortunately enough, has been able to represent itself as the most promising market, not just on the Asia Pacific side of things, but also on the global map. Right. When it comes to the highest growth rate being witnessed across any market in the world. True. So which by far is a positive, and the outlook continues to be that of optimism as we enter into this calendar year.
Interesting. You mentioned that the market has mostly been static over the years, and due to these events, either local or global in nature. What do you think are the key driving factors and the current challenges this industry faces?
I think consistency and deliverance when it comes to regulations is the very first thing that impacts the luxury automotive industry particularly. Why I say what I say is because what happens is that, see, you decide to commit an investment as a brand, as an automotive company. That investment entails millions and billions of dollars, right? Now, when you decide to commit such huge amounts of money as an investment into any market, the least that an investor or a promoter will think for himself is that, is there a consistency or a stability when it comes to deliverance as far as policy matters are concerned? Is there a consistency or a stability when it comes to taxation related matters are concerned? Government is concerned, right? If you look at the seesaw that we witnessed for ourselves in the last, let's say 12 to 15 years or 18 years also, we have had a lacuna or a vacuum of sorts. If you look at the situation as it unfolded for itself post, let's say 2014, yes, the government has been stable. We are seeing the existing government to continue in its second term nationally. Having said that, when it came to policy, we've also seen a change when it came to the regime as far as taxation was concerned, to a degree that we never saw before, right? We did see the rollout of GST, which in itself was a landmark introduction for a size in the country of India, what it is today, right? You're looking at 1.4 billion plus population country getting impacted by the inclusion of GST as a system. Has it worked for itself? Oh, yes, it has. Has the government been able to deliver on that front? Definitely they have, right? Having said that, I still feel that there are a lot of opportunities and areas of improvements for us when it comes to areas for infrastructure, areas for road connectivity, areas for highways, areas for public utilities, right? And let's say even connectivity, internet, telecom, infrastructure, which is again part of that entire growth story as far as, let's say, infrastructure is concerned. So we are seeing now the government actually wanting to take their initiative into these segments. Look at the incidence of airports, which is enhancing the connectivity. So in my opinion, if I look at the way in which the market has metamorphosed itself to what it is today, I genuinely believe that out of the basket of markets that we look at versus developing to the developed, I believe India by far promises the most positive growth story for itself to where it was to where it can be in the future.
So I think what you're also saying is that the very fact, the way India is right now, that itself is an enabler for your industry as well.
Oh, yes, absolutely. The reason I say is because of the fact that look at the DNA at which a luxury car purchase happens for an individual. Now, here I go back to my basics, is that of consumer buying behavior, right? Whether you decide to buy a Lamborghini, whether you decide to buy an Alto, or even a Maruti 800, it ranks amongst the top 4 purchases that an individual ever is going to make in his life.
True.
Right? The very first thing that an individual thinks of himself when he or she decides to, let's say, start working professionally, right? You always look at Maslow's theory of motivation, right? I'm going back to the basics to bore you with, let's say, academics, but that still, let's say, ranks as a practical reality for us in our lives, day to day. You look at Maslow's theory of motivation, what is it that you look at? You first look at taking care of physiological needs for an individual, right? And that is where the traditional Hindi movie also called Roti, Kapda or Makan comes into the picture. Now, when you look at a professional entering into the professional domain or an entrepreneur budding entrepreneur, what is it that they wish to secure themselves for? They first wish to secure themselves for a house, right? Which ranks at the top. The second thing that they wish to secure themselves for is to have a stability when it comes to their income, right? Well, if it were to be the southern part of India, it would be gold. Right? But having said that, you still are looking at somebody who's wanting to have that as a security for ourselves. And saving as a DNA is something that we've been inculcated with since our childhood when it comes to our formative years across all religions. I will not want to say that saving is a virtue that our parents have not taught us to be grown up with. With that being said, is where I see that with the physiological needs getting taken care of, with the financial stability getting taken care of, with the financial planning, allowing an individual to back up their financial stability is where the purchase decision of buying a car takes a precedence for an individual professional entrepreneur to make a statement that yes, I have arrived. It could be a Maruti 800, it could be a Mercedes Benz, it could be a BMW,
True.
or it could be whatever. But his journey to represent his success gets resonated with the car he purchases for a large part of the audience in this country. And that is the precise reason why even, let's say, leasing as a concept, I may be slightly digressing from the topic, but leasing as a concept factually never took off in this country ever.
Right.
Despite the fact that, in the US, the Europe or China, leasing is something which continues to be the bread and butter for these companies worldwide. The biggest customer group when it comes to, let's say, top 3 luxury car players is the leasing segment. Because fact of the matter is that leasing, it is supposed to be a point of commute when it comes to point A to point B. That's what they regard it to be as. A BMW X3 today in the US will set you back by $475 of EMI a month is all that it takes for you to be able to have an X3 for yourself and be able to drive that car out. Right. Look at the similar situation for a customer to buy that same car in India. You're looking at shelling out close to about 1.75 lakh of rupees to avail a 3-year funding for the same amount of, for the same car with the same spec.
True.
Right? So yes, it's a combination of taxation. It's a combination of where we exist as a market. So with all these things put together, purchasing a car ranks clearly amongst the top 4 decisions for an individual. Hence, it becomes very, very special.
True. Yeah, it's an emotion. Actually.
It's an emotion which drives the purchase to a significant extent. Have we lacked that emotion as Indians? My answer to that is a clear no. But at the end of the day, if you look at the larger gentry of the audience who is into the luxury car purchase, buying a luxury car in India is still considered to be a sin for the government at large.
Yeah.
Right? Which is why they call it a sin tax. Yeah. It's not the SYNTA, it's the SINTAX, space TAX. Which is where it is considered to be, and that's the reason you see this segment also being blessed with taxes that are absolutely draconian in nature. For the segment of cars that we deal in, the tax incidence is as high as 48% when it comes to GST. When it comes to registration of cars, it's 12 to 20% towards the registration of cars. So close to 70% of the car cost is governed and determined by the value for it to reach on road from the factory. So, lot of challenges that have, let's say, come along our way. Having said that, I still believe that though India, from the lens of the global world, will be a growth story to unfold for itself, and maybe it has been at the pace of a turtle in the last years that I have mentioned and that have gone by, I still remain optimistic and positive that it will show the good times and promising times to come.
Interesting. Well, I hope so too. What is the degree of competition in this industry?
Well, competition is there. You have the big three players who are present, just as the way India as a market, what is visible for us to see as in India as a market, you have practically all the luxury car players who are there in this market present. Starting from the big three players who continue to dominate the global map, to Jaguar Land Rover, to Volvo, to Ferrari, to a McLaren, to a Porsche, to a Lamborghini, to a Rolls Royce, to a Maserati. You name the brand and you are practically having that as a access to a customer in India, which in itself shows the fact that the Indian customer is not somebody who will take things for granted.
Yeah.
Right? Let's accept the fact today that for the same car, same spec, what a European pays in Europe or what a US customer pays in US, an Indian, despite being a domestic production or a CKD production, as we all know it or we call it,
Right.
lands up paying nothing less than 70% price higher for the same car to the retail price of what it is being sold in US versus the retail price to what it is being sold in India. And the Indian customer is extremely value conscious because of the fact that he knows that he's paying much higher than his US and his European counterparts. He wishes and he demands the treatment much better than what a US or a European counterpart or even a Chinese counterpart deserves to get. Because he's very clear in his head today that, boss, if I am paying this money, I know for a fact that my Chinese counterpart is paying this much. My US counterpart is paying this much. My European counterpart is paying this much.
Correct.
And hell, I have arrived, given the fact that I have purchased a luxury car. I deserve to be treated like a king.
True. What are some of the talent-related challenges that you face in this segment, especially?
We are a country of 1.4 billion people. If I were to talk about the city that we live and we operate in comprises of 1.78 crore people, you look at the workable talent that is available as an industry pool at the end of the day, especially in the automotive retail side and segment of things, it does not even comprise of more than 6,000 to 10,000 people at max.
Correct.
And here also, if you decide to do your ABC classification, in terms of what segment of the population decides to contribute to 80% of the business that you wish to get in, you're again looking at an 80-20 ratio setting and coming into the picture for you to be able to have the real workforce that makes the real difference for you to be able to deliver the real result. So that as a challenge is something which has been a situation of sorts which continues to plague us as a market. And this as a challenge is something which continues to dominate in India, in the software space, in the retail space, in the food retail space, in the supply chain, in medical, across everywhere.
True.
So though we say that we are the youngest workforce, though we say that we are the most promising country in the world with the youngest workforce, with the biggest English speaking population, combined with the sizable chunk of them being educated, not literate, educated, we still are looking at a large percentage of the same workforce who's looking to face the horror of either unemployment or a disguised unemployment or underemployment. Because unfortunately, we've not been able to create that connect between what we have learned versus what needs to be applied to be able to translate into day-to-day business, resonating success, resonating result. So knowledge, application of knowledge.
That's the missing part.
Absolutely. So yes, we have identified ways and means to bridge that gap. Not that we don't. We strongly encourage, let's say, when it comes to retail side of the business for us, we strongly encourage local talent by way of, let's say, engineers, ITI graduates, diploma holders in engineering to be coming to join our dealerships, where they can be looking to have a stipend for themselves, catch them young, and ensure that we are able to groom them to the way we wish to see them work. And by the time I would say that they're, let's say, deciding to complete their engineering, or let's say with 2 years of work experience also, an average diploma holder or even an ITI graduate is in a position to be able to do all the basic work that's required to run and check a BMW car, which makes a world of a difference when it comes to ensuring that his confidence level boosts up. And with that coming into the picture, you're then looking at a situation or a scenario where the guy is ready to work.
Right.
Having said that, I will still say that a large section of the population, especially in the era which belongs to the Gen Z, I believe this video is meant for them, so definitely a very, very strong message for them. This generation has been brought up in the era of YouTube, in the era of Instagram, right? Where every message, everything that you wish to do gets delivered to you by way of a YouTube short or an Instagram reel.
Yes.
Real life is not that. Real life is not that. Unfortunately, I'm slapping you guys with a very, very hard reality, but real life is far from that. It's not that कि swipe करेगा तो ये मिल जाएगा, swipe करेगा तो वो मिल जाएगा. Things take time.